Well, let's take a look at all of this VPN stuff we just talked about. Let's see how it comes together here in lab number 19. Right? So, if we look at the diagram of what we've got going on, we're going to end up deploying a whole new edge node and a new tier 0 gateway to put our layer 2 VPN configuration on here, and we're going to configure that against our autonomous edge. Now, we're going to in turn extend L2 VPN segment to a specific remote VLAN or remote network VLAN, and so we're going to make all this layer 2 VPN stuff come together here right in front of our own eyes. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to prepare for the lab. We're going to deploy a new edge node. So this is going to take us a couple of minutes. We're going to configure a new edge cluster. That won't take us any time at all. A new tier 0 gateway. Again, no real time at all. Then we'll walk through the IPsec VPN service and the layer 2 VPN server and session, and then we're going to configure up an autonomous edge. Now, we talked about the autonomous edge. This will be the first time we have seen one. So we'll take a look at that and then make sure finally that the VPN works. So where do we start? Well, we start by making sure we've got our NSX UI open and logged in, which we have, and that we've got a vCenter UI open and logged in, which again we have. If you don't, go ahead and get those set up and logged in, and everything should be good. And from here, we're going to go back into deploy an edge. So we come over to System and Fabric and Nodes, and then we'll come over to our Edge Nodes tab when that loads here in just a second. Edge Transport Nodes, and we will add an Edge transport node. We're going to call this SA NSX Edge 03, and that's going to be SA NSX Edge 03.vclass.local for the FQDN. This is an edge node to hold our host our VPN gateway. We're going to use a medium edge node here, so we'll go ahead and hit next. We've got our credentials. Let's go ahead and copy our NSX password here, and we'll go ahead and enter our CLI password for admin. Paste, allow SSH credentials, and we'll go ahead and allow our root credentials, and everything should be good here. We want to place this in our VCSA01 compute manager. We're going to use our management cluster to place this. We want to go ahead and put this in the SA shared 01 NSX data store. We don't want to worry about the resource pool or the host. We'll let vCenter figure that out. We want a static IP address on our management interface. This is going to be 172.20.10.63. Again, /24. We're going to have a default gateway of 172.20.10.10. We'll go ahead and select our interface and attach that management interface to our management port group. Search domains, vclass.local, DNS server 172.20.10.10, and NTP is 172.20.10.100. Right, just like the edges in a much earlier lab, we're not going to use uniform pass-through. We'll go ahead and come through and deal with that. We're going to configure this up with a couple of host switches. So prod overlay NVDS. Right, we've been through this before. We did this when we deployed Edge 2 and 3. We want to put that NVDS in the overlay transport zone. We're going to use the single NIC uplink profile and use our IP pool for our TEP IP pool. And what interface do we want to attach this to? This is for our Edge overlay, so we'll save that. Scroll back up to the top and add another switch. Right here, prod VLAN NVDS. And we'll put that in our prod VLAN TZ transport zone and single NIC profile. No IP addressing here, but we need to select our uplinks interface. or our uplinks port group rather. Now we'll go ahead and finish. Now at this point we wait, right? At this point we wait until Edge 3 has finished deploying. So we see our deployment here. Let's come over to vCenter. In vCenter, we see our deploy OVF template, right? SA NSX Edge 03. That's what we're deploying right now. That's great. We'll come back over here to the NSX UI and wait. Well, I'm going to wait. If you're deploying this in your lab, you're going to wait. This video, well, here in just a second, this will be done. And there we have it. It's done. We finally have our Edge node deployed. It's only been a few minutes, but we're close. I know this says degraded. Well, look at this. Everything says up. We've seen that game before. It's just a matter of everything kind of settling in. So let's come over to our Edge clusters. Now that we've got an Edge node, we'll go ahead and build that up. We're going to call this Edge Cluster 02 and Edge Cluster for VPN gateways. That's what we're going to do here. We're going to add in NSX Edge 03, and that, as they say, is that. Now, let's go ahead and get our networking infrastructure set up for our VPN. So let's go back to networking and segments, and we're in the NSX tab. Let's build a new segment. We'll call this Tier 0 Gateway 02 VPN uplink, because we're going to need an uplink. We're going to make this a VLAN transport zone, and no real VLAN tagging here, so we're going to plug in VLAN 0. Right, that's going to be our uplink here. So we'll save that, and that's all we need here. So no, don't continue configuring that. So there's our T0. Well, if I could type, let's edit that just so that says T0. Not a big deal. I could have left it. It would have been just fine. But we'll update that. Close editing. T0GW02 VPN uplink. Then we're going to add a segment. We're going to call this L2 VPN segment. And we're going to connect this to, well, to nothing yet. Because we haven't built our Tier 0 gateway. We haven't built our VPN gateway yet. But this is going to be an overlay, an overlay network, and we're going to go ahead and leave our subnets blank for right now. So we'll go ahead and save that configuration just like that. So we've got a segment that's not attached to a gateway. There's our L2 VPN segment, and we're not worried about the gateway at the IP addressing at this point. Now let's build a Tier 0 gateway for all this. So we're going to add a Tier 0 gateway, and we're going to call this T0 GW. Let me get my mouse focus in the right place. T0 GW02 VPN. And we're going to make this active standby. We have to make it active standby so that we can actually build a VPN service here. And we're going to associate this with Edge Cluster 2. Our failover mode will be preemptive in this particular point. We're going to set a preferred edge this time. So we're going to set that to NSX Edge 03. All right, I think that's all that we want to do here. So let's save this. And yes, in this case, we do want to continue configuring. And the first thing we're going to do here is worry about our route redistribution, right? That's right here on this particular UI. Let's go ahead and add this and add a route redistribution rule. We'll call this T0GW02 VPN route redistribution. Let me type that correctly. Destination, well, all right. There we go. We'll use the autocorrect capability to change my typing. That works for me. And we're going to come in here. We want static routes on our Tier 0. We also want connected interfaces and segments. Connected interfaces and segments. So we're going to go ahead and go ahead and set that, define that. We'll go ahead and apply here. We're not worried about tier 1 prefixes right now, tier 1 advertised routes, because we're not really we're not really doing anything with tier 1 gateways on this specific tier 0. So that's what we want here. Now, we want to make sure that we're doing this by via BGP. That's fine. We want to go ahead and click save here. And then we're going to go configure our BGP configuration. Not our BGP. We're not ready for BGP yet. We're working on our interfaces. That's what we want to do. We want to set our interfaces. And so we'll get our interfaces. Here's our uplink T0GW02. Let's VPN uplink. It's external. We're going to give this an IP address of 192.168.201.2/24. We're going to connect this to our VPN uplink segment. So we'll scroll down in our list and find that T0GW02 VPN uplink segment. And we want to create this uplink interface on SA NSX Edge 03. And we'll save that. And we'll go ahead and make sure that we have success here. We'll close this. And we'll go ahead and close editing here. Now, we don't have a BGP neighbor or anything yet. We'll configure that a little bit later. So let's configure up let's configure up some VPN stuff. So we're going to come in and under networking, under VPN, add an IPsec VPN service. All right, so we're in our VPN services right now. We've got to build the service, and this is going to be an IPsec service for our layer 2 VPN. Right? We've got to have an IPsec service set up and available. So we'll go ahead and set that up and add that in. And we'll leave pretty much everything default here. We just want to create the service and associate it with the correct gateway. Right? So IPsec for L2 VPN is an IPsec service associated with Tier 0 Gateway 02 VPN. Great. Good shape here. Now we need our VPN server. So let's come over to our layer 2 VPN server service. Right, we're going to add that while we're here. And we'll call this our L2 VPN server. And we want to select the same gateway, T0 GW02. We're going to leave everything else default here. But now we've got our IPsec service and our layer 2 VPN server service. All right. So far, so good. Now we need a layer 2 VPN session. So we're going to add a session. We're going to add a server session. And we're going to call this, well, we actually start out with our endpoints. All right, so let's come over here. Let's set this up. We want to work with our layer 2 VPN. We have no endpoints. We want to add a local endpoint. That's a kicker we need to get into here. All right, we need to add a local endpoint. We're going to call this an L2 VPN endpoint, and we're going to associate this endpoint with our layer 2 or with our IPsec VPN service. 168.201.3. That's going to be the IP address that we are listening for, right? So we're going to create this interface on the gateway at 192.168.201.3. I'm going to go ahead and set a local ID to match. So we've got that. Now we're going to set up a pre-shared key here. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. We need we need a remote IP address. 192.168.201.4. Right. So our local endpoint is .3. We've got that configured. We're going to connect to 192.168.201.4. Now we can plug the same IP address. In this case, it's the same into our ID. Our pre-shared key is VMware1 exclamation point. I can click on this little eye icon to make sure that's set right. I probably should have copied and pasted. I've done that every place else, but I didn't do it here. So we can validate that our pre-shared key is correct, and then we need our tunnel interface. Our tunnel interface, our VTI, I put too many .1s in there. 169.1.1.1 is what we will use here, and we're going to make that a /24. So that's gonna match up with what's on the other end, or give me a path to what's on the other end more precisely. So we'll go ahead and finish that out. And no, we do not want to continue configuring. Right. And so there's our layer 2 VPN session. It's a server. It's associated with L2 VPN server service, associated with the L2 VPN endpoint, local endpoint connecting to 192.168.201.4. Right. So, here we show a state of success. There's not going to be a tunnel status. Notice that we're still trying to negotiate. We don't have anything configured to work with here. So, there's not a whole lot going on at this point. Now, we do want to expand this back out and click on this download config link. Right? Remember that the config is going to have that peer code that we talked about, and so that's what we're trying to grab right now. And we get our warning that says, hey, there could be some security implications. Got the pre-shared key, all that. Yeah, it's okay. We'll go ahead and save that, and then we can go ahead and open it. Right? We want to grab the peer code. Now I'm going to come over here and just grab this. Remember, it's between the quotes, and we'll right click and copy that. Right? We'll copy that because we'll need it later. And, we'll have to hope that I remember to not change anything. So what are we going to do now? All right, we've got the config, we've got the peer code. We're going to need that in our Autonomous Edge here in a minute. Now we're going to go and work with our L2 VPN segment. So let's go ahead and find our segment and find our L2 VPN segment. We will edit this. And under the layer 2 VPN, we're going to come in and select the layer 2 VPN, right? Layer 2 VPN session. We don't have a local ingress IP. That's fine. And we're going to use tunnel ID 100. So now we have a segment. There's our close editing. It's just under the UI here. We're going to go ahead and have that all set up. Now we've got our layer 2 VPN segment. It's bridged to the other side, to the other endpoint, assuming we end up with a configuration with tunnel ID 100. And so let's go ahead and look at our Autonomous Edge. We'll open up a new tab, and under NSX, we'll come in and select our Autonomous Edge. Yeah, we'll go ahead and accept the certificate. We trust it. It's our lab. Oh, I'm gonna have to change what I'm copying and pasting. It's a good thing we still have our layer 2 VPN session. All right, so we'll go ahead and copy our username. These are going to be the same credentials that we have used for NSX already. All right, so there's the VMware1 Bang password. We'll get logged in here. Now I'm going to go ahead and preemptively come in and copy my peer code again. I know I'm going to need that, right? And we'll get to that here in a couple of steps. But since I'm working with my text editor and going back and forth, that's where we're going to go. So what do we want to do now? Well, now we've got our Autonomous Edge. There's our summary. It shows kind of everything that may or may not be going on. We want to come over to our port, and we want to add port to the Autonomous Edge. We're going to call this L2 VPN port, and we'll give it an IP address. We'll not give it a subnet, rather. We're going to use VLAN 50, and we will exit this out of Ethernet ETH3. Right, that's what we're looking at here. So we'll go ahead and save that. All right, save that. And that gives us an interface to work with for our layer 2 VPN. So we come down to our layer 2 VPN config now, and we want to add a session. All right, this is where we're going to configure up our client session. So let's call this L2 VPN client session. It's admin enabled. Our local IP. Right, let's change that to match what we configured earlier, 201.4. Our remote IP, 192.168.201.3. And then there's our space for our peer code. And I'll go ahead and paste that back in. All right, and so we can go ahead and save that session. And there we go. There's our L2 VPN session. Now we don't have a port associated with that, so let's attach a port. We want to attach a port to L2 VPN client session. We want L2 VPN port, and let's go ahead and set this up at tunnel ID 100. So that's how we're going to specify on the Autonomous Edge where the or what segment, what VLAN is going to go across this tunnel. Right. So we've got that now. Let's make sure that this all works. So, we can see that we have a status of up for our L2 VPN client session. If we come back to NSX and come back to not our tier 0 gateway, let's go to VPNs. That's where we want to go. And come back to our VPN sessions. Right. We're going to see, oh, there we go. We have a tunnel status. Our IKE status is up. Our source and destination, we've got everything. Everything is up here. So we can look at this and everything looks just great. Now, let's see if it all works. So we'll come over to vSphere now. And we've got our layer 2 VPN virtual machines. There's T1 L2 VPN 01. Let's get this VM attached, not to our PGSA production, but to our layer 2 VPN segment, to our overlay segment that we're using here. So I scrolled right down past it. There we go. Let's connect there. L2 VPN segment. We are connected. Let's hit OK. And then we'll go ahead and scroll down a little bit. Now I've got my Autonomous Edge. We want to double check something here. SA ESXi 04 and T1 L2 VPN 02. Both are on ESXi 04. That's something for our lab specifically, right? We will actually walk you through checking that and validating that in your lab infrastructure. And that's, again, it's just the nature of how we're building our labs with virtual machines and virtual ESXi hosts and all that. So we have to be careful about that. Now we can look at T1 L2 VPN 02 and see that it is connected to this remote network port group. And that's what we're looking for. That's what we need to have this set to. Now let's come back to L2 VPN 01. Let's open up a web console. And here we have to log in. The username is VMware. And the password is VMWARE, capital V, capital M, 1 bang. All right, so that's my password right there. Capital V, capital M, WARE, 1 bang. So that's how we got into this. It's right there in your lab guide. Let's make sure we can get to the other virtual machine, right? So if I look at this, we're getting there, right? We've got some duplicates. That's a lab thing. That's the way that our lab functions. And if we come over here, let's prove that that's the right virtual machine. Let's launch the web console on L2 VPN 02 VMware, and VMWY. I didn't type that right. Let's get logged in. All right. If we look at the IP address there, 172.16.50.12, right on interface ENS 160. So, that's 172.16.50.12 is what we're looking at. And we should be looking at 50.11 here. So I bet if I come over here, and ping.11, look at that. That works as well. So that's our layer 2 VPN. That's our IPsec VPN. That's the fun we get to have, right? We only scratched the surface of the things we can do here, but it's enough to kind of get you started. So we've got more cool stuff to talk about. Can't wait to see you about users and roles and all that kind of stuff in a few minutes.